Hello and welcome back. As you can see, as promised, we are back in Houdini, Arnold and Solaris. We will be deep diving today into very technical realms of Shotwork, Passwork, templates. It will get very tricky and probably a bit difficult to understand in some cases. But for that reason, I have the scene files uploaded to my Patreon, which you can get if you subscribe there or become a member of this YouTube channel to get the same kind of perks. A huge thanks to Autodesk for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate the support. Without them, these videos would not have been possible. So thank you very much for supporting me. And if you haven't done so, please join the Discord server in the description below. It's a very big community. And especially if you have questions regarding this video, you have a direct line to me as well. And you will obviously be part of a huge community with lots of talented people, all eager to help you if you seek for the help. I will be using NVIDIA's Attic USD file, so make sure to download that first if you want to follow along. Yeah, and now let's get going. These are the results of this day's tutorial. So it's definitely a very stylized look. As you can see, we are using NVIDIA's Attic scene, which already comes with textures and basic shaders and everything like that. I adjusted the lighting, and obviously this has some comp treatment to make it a little bit more realistic with some grainy, some lens effects, depth of field obviously. Yeah, so that's the look. Today's video will be a little bit more complex. This should simulate a production environment shot work system using name switches and pass switches, and obviously giving you crypto mats, deep outputs, Aovs, obviously imagers, a couple of HDAs I developed here, like I added a little bit more stuff in this HDA. So yeah, we will have to cover quite a few things. And as I said before, this is using NVIDIA's Attic scene, and it is pretty much tailored to this scene, not specifically to a certain scene, but because we get a certain USD file, I need to make sure that my changes are applied to this. Obviously, if you have a different upstream pipeline where you have different USD sublayers, this will probably work a little bit different. And it's just covering the asset section. So whatever happens here might be different in your case, but everything happening downstream should be the same, especially once we go into the Shotwork system. I'm working in a Solaris context. I need to have lots of windows open to actually work efficiently. I'm recording this on a 4K resolution. I hope this is enough. It might be a little bit small in some cases, but I'll try to explain things if I find that it's not clear enough, and I will also zoom in if needed. Yeah, so it's a similar layout as we had before in the previous tutorial where I was showing you an introduction to this. So if you haven't watched that, please watch that first. It's about the IV and the text and stuff like that. And this is a little bit more complex, or actually a lot more complex than that. Again, so assets, we do some material overrides. Then obviously this is a Shotwork section, which means we have different cameras. You can see we've got camera 1, 2, and 3 here. They are driven by a variable shot switch. I also have a different technique using an insertion point to drive the shots, which I can show as well as both pretty nice techniques. And then we go into Passwork, and I just created 3 different passes, which I'm just showing you some certain things you can do in auto, like camera visibility on a certain pass, and obviously do all sorts of other things if you need to. Probably do some specific maybe shader tweaks for just the TV pass or whatever. Then we go into render IPR. I always do that because this is a faster scene interaction than rendering from your final settings, because we are not creating imagers, Aovs, crypto mats, and all of that. I had to do a little bit of juggling just because there are a couple of bugs still in Arnold which are a little bit troublesome, but I'm sure they will be fixed very soon. About rendering deep data and also automatic Aovs. Per light Aovs. This one here is just a resolution override for half resolution, just for me to test. This one is about doing shot ranges, so I'm specifying which shot is happening on which frame. And then at the bottom here, I'm setting which context to actually render each USD ROP. And then, as I said before, with this Husk and Sick bug, I had to create 2 outputs. One is just responsible for deep, which is Husk, which is the native render engine for Houdini. And then the other one is this one, which is using Sick, which is Arnold's render engine, direct render engine. And I need to do that to have this nice feature. I can show that to you quickly in the Aovs section. If you prefix your Aovs, suffix your Aovs with underscore asterisk, this will automatically find all the given light AOV groups. And if I hop to Nuke rather quick, you will see that this is obviously the comp here. If I go to my beauty and I do my layer context sheet, you will see that we do have these nice pillows. And I didn't do anything manually for this. Like typically, if you don't do that trick, you have to create a render variable and a render product for each of your lights. And with this underscore asterisk, this will happen automatically. And in legacy Houdini rendering using Arnold, you don't have to do that fancy trick, which I had to do. Let's probably dive into this a little bit more in detail, and I'll show you exactly what is what. And as I said, this is using NVIDIA's Attic Scene. If you want to follow along, you have to download that asset. It's quite big. It's a couple of gigabytes. If you want to follow along with this whole tutorial, the source files for exactly this scene will be uploaded to my Patreon, including all the HDAs and all of the fun stuff. So if you want to, as I said, follow along, make sure to be either subscribe to my or become a member of this YouTube channel. At the bottom, you can click join and you will get the same access as my patrons. Yeah, so check it out. As you can see on the left, we do have an active render running using this shot. And I can actually go in here, rotate the camera and all of that, and Arnold will just update. You can see now it's using imagers. And yeah, this is obviously rendering live in Arnold, which is pretty nice. As I said, we are creating imagers, crypto mats, everything on the fly. You will see all of this. So that's why the iteration is a little bit slow. I can also change to my interactive render settings, which will be these ones. And these you can see are a lot quicker to interact with. And as I said, I will light in kind of this environment because it doesn't output anything. It's a lot quicker. But for my files, I obviously go and change it up. Okay, let me just, if you hit Shift R, you can toggle between the OpenGL and your render version. So Sublayer brings in obviously the NVIDIA scene, Stage Manager. I'm just deleting a couple of things which I don't like, especially the lights. They cause a little bit of issues in my case, and I just deleted them and created new ones. A couple of assets, they don't have a shader. One is the stars. These, let me just actually view from here. But these red stars, we've got a shader now. You can hop in here quite easily, create a material library node, then you are back in your usual Arnold material builders section, and then I'm just super basic stuff, just a material, nothing crazy. A cool thing which you can do, which I had to do, is let's say you want to override a material. So if you have a USD file which comes in, first of all, select it wherever you want it, wherever it is. And you can find the shader. So this couch has this on the left, bottom left here, this couch material. So I can create an edit material network, and I can just obviously put it into my stream like that. And I can drag in the couch material, which will load it. And then I can hit load. Internally now, this will regenerate the shader, which is pretty awesome because now you have the texture files, you've got the basic shader, and you can do whatever you want with that. And that's essentially what I did in this edit network here with the couch. I didn't want to deal with the preview surface because it's super basic. I wanted to have the Arnold shader. So I dove in here and I created an image node. I actually reference linked it to the upstream shader output, texture output, this material file node. Hopped in here and hooked that up. Then I did some color corrections to the couch to change the color slightly. And then I just used that. So that's pretty nice, what you can always do. Same for the TV. I created the surface shader. I hooked up several image nodes, did some color corrections, adjusted the roughness maps, and brought it back in. And this is how you would do typical material override. Obviously, if you create materials, you just use a material library. If you want to edit, you use edit material network. Then subnets. In here, I just created basic lights, BG fill, sun, and ENV. And make sure, as I said before, that your AOV has always a light group. And I just named this $OS, which means it will use the operator name, which is in this case sun, ENV, and BG fill. And you will see the same names reflected here. ENV, sun, they're all reflected in the Nuke output as well. All right, Shotwork. This is now where things get a little bit more complex because it needs probably a little bit more understanding how the system here works. And essentially Shotwork just means things overrides on a per shot basis. So first of all, what I did, I created these insertion points. This was my first attempt to do a very nice and dynamic setup. And the insertion points essentially means whenever you create one, you can select an insertion point up here in the viewer, which then gets activated. And whenever you create a node in the viewport, let's say I want to do, let's just do a light, Control Enter, and you will see it will go right above this insertion point. If I go to another insertion point, 20, we're now on the middle stream, I do the same thing. I click it and it goes there. This is what insertion points means. I thought it would be quite handy to actually have the insertion points, if you select them, to actually activate this shot. So I have these two different switches here at the bottom. One is the insertion point switch and one is a variable switch. If I hook this one up and activate this, you will now see that this stream is active because the nodes are not grayed out. But if I switch now to a different shot, you'll see this one gets activated. If I go to the next shot, this one gets activated. And normally this doesn't happen. It doesn't work like that, the insertion. So what I did here in the expression, I did a little Python expression. Thanks for the CG Wiki actually for this little code here, which helped me to actually find the name of the insertion point. And then I did just basic string operations to split them, then extract obviously the name I want, and then I'm returning the name, and that's driving the switch. And based on that, I'm driving it essentially. So I could quickly, let's say I want to look in my shot cam now, shot cam this, and I want to switch a shot. You can see everything is pretty much live and it updates as it should, which is awesome. And then we've got Passwork, and I just created this because when you work in a bigger shot, you have like foreground, midground, characters, effects, and this should just simulate that. I just extracted a couple of things, and if I go back to Nuke here quick, you'll see I've got my set, which is this, and then I got the TV set separated and the little bear separated. So that's just my basic sets, just to show a proof of concept here. Essentially how it works, you have your pass switch at the bottom here, and it obviously looks for a render pass variable, which is currently set to the name set, and you can drive that through this menu. And if I select TV, you'll notice that this stream gets activated. If I go to Teddy, the Teddy pass gets activated. If you want to create your own, you just hit the plus. You do whatever you want to do here. Probably you want a text or an integer, and then you can fill it. You can always hit the pen at the top right to edit, and then you can add more variables to this context. Similar as in the previous tutorial, got my images, Aovs, cryptomats. In here, I added, as I said, the deep alpha, which I didn't show previously. So this HDA is updated, and I just created this deep variable with the name RGBA, but in the product where it's actually being sent to the farm, that has the product type from raster set to deep, which actually will enable this. In a future version of H2A, or this will be a lot easier. There will be drop-down menus to create it, very similar to how you used to do it. But for now, in this version I'm using, this is how you do it to create deeps. Cryptomats, so edit shot context is currently disabled because I found a nice other way while I was working on this. Render settings, obviously just supplying the cryptomat, supplying imagers. I have for my final settings adaptive on, in this case currently not, but I will enable that. And then for disk render, you will see now at the bottom here, I have these context variables again. And these here at the bottom, just before you render actually, they will define which render variable to enable. Render passes, this one is on set, this one will be on TV when it's updating, TV. And this one here is on the Teddy pass. Because I'm overriding this at globally here in the context options, these will override whatever is done in the scene right now. But what I can do, I can just disconnect this, and then this should actually update properly. Okay, it just seems to be actually a UI update issue because it does sometimes work. It's a little bit curious. I don't really know. That's probably something they need to fix, but it's definitely working once you have your variables set at the bottom here, because they go upstream. Whatever is set the lowest as a context will pass up the stream. So because I render from the bottom, this variable will override everything upstream. So even if I would have something up here, it will not. The one at the bottom will win. This is also how I do the shot variables here, and so as I said, the one thing here is to create the pass overrides. And the other thing is to have the Shotwork system. So one is using the insertion points to drive the shots, which I currently have activated. But the other switch, if you hook that one up, works a little bit different. So insertion points are now ignored. You can clear the insertion points, nothing will happen. But if I go a frame, if I hit now keyboard right to the second frame, 1002, you'll see that my shot changes. And this is cool if you want to render and you don't want to wait for the render, then submit again, change the insertion point, render again. So I'm rendering actually 3 frames, and you will see at the bottom here when I launch them, it's set to 2001, 2003, and then the things will get rendered. And this is another way to set things up. And I have, as I said, I have both in this setup because I thought both were quite handy to use. Yeah, and this is essentially how I'm doing this. Yeah, so what we can do now, we can do a little bit of lighting, and I just want to show you how cool that system actually is. So if I go to my set here, you can obviously do that as well, where you want to switch it. I'm switching it here, but we are rendering from these settings, so that's all good. And you will notice that this is now active as well. The first one, I do have my light mixer. But actually, let's create a specular light or something, which just helps to visualize that. So in my light section here, you can also do it through the UI. The only caveat is if you do it through the light mixer, which I actually tend to do all the time, you can right click here, insert light, and you want a rect light. You can't rename them, or I couldn't figure out how to rename. I can't not double click or anything, so I just always have to go in here and yeah, rename them here. Let's just call this specular or pony light, whatever. Pony light. So you can do some changes on here, but you can also do the same changes in the light mixer. But I want to just set something up in the first place. So Arnold AOV light group, I actually need to set defaults. I haven't done that yet. $OS. Base properties, let's just make this 10 by 10 in size. We keep all the same, maybe do exposure as on 5. Let's see, we can select obviously the light in our primitive view here in the scene graph. Let's close that. Pony light, there you go. I have to select the light mixer actually to move things. Right, so the light is now somewhere. What I want to do, which is pretty cool, you can obviously edit it where you want it to be. But you can also say, I want to place a specular, and you can actually just click where you want it. So I had a little bit viewport issues. I couldn't place the lights anymore. So I had to go to labs, reset viewport. If you don't have labs up here, you need to install labs. You can get them from the shelf tools. But anyway, so now if I go back and render using Arnold, I should hopefully get a render view going. And now I have this scene view active. My light is selected. I have diffuse enabled. If I now click on my mesh, you will see that the light is being moved. And obviously I can drag it first into my light mixer, make sure that my intensity is on 1. And then I can also increase my exposure, let's say to 8 maybe. And you can now see that the pony gets lit up. And that's what the intention was with all of this. So I can now place them. If I want the TV screen to get a diffuse bounce, I can just click it and it will get that. If I want a specular bounce, I can do that as well. I can just select this, and now you can see wherever I click, we get this nice specular. Same on the TV, you get the specular response. And this is hugely helpful to place lights in a very quick fashion. So obviously I do want that nice spec hit on it. Obviously I want to reduce my exposure a little, so I can just middle mouse click and drag in the light mixer, reduce the light. Maybe I want to have it a little bit of a blue tint. I can obviously do that super easily. I can just move over here and increase saturation. There we go, we got a blue pony. And this is obviously a lot better than playing around in comp and messing around with the AOVs. Let's say we want to reduce the sun. We can obviously, because we are working in the shot environment, let me just close this guy off, move it to the side. So I've got a little bit more room here. The light mixer does take a huge amount of space. So because as we're working in the shot context of shot 10, I can just say, okay, in the shot 10, I think the sun is on the couch too strong. And I can, I don't know, middle mouse click and drag and reduce it until it's not super hot. And you can see now that's a lot better. And now let's say we want to go to the next shot. So I'm just a keyboard to the right for the next frame. We should be jumping frames, and then let's just try this again. So next frame, Are we in the right context? We are not viewing from the bottom. That's why it didn't switch, because we are viewing from somewhere up there. If I view from here, you will now see the shot has changed. If I go back to one, obviously we're back to this one. And the other shot is obviously like this. And the third one is this. If we want to, for instance, have the room and the distance a little bit darker, again, same deal as before. Light mixer, this light is called BG Fill. It's this one. And we can just reduce it, and you will see that, oh, that's actually the lamp we are changing. It's then called the backfill light. And you will now see that it gets really dark, or we can boost it up, it gets really bright. And it's a super handy way, honestly, to work. And it's very similar to Katana, it's very similar to Gaffer. And also the whole setup is based on that because of my experience working at Industrial Light and Magic, at Image Engine. They all have a very similar setup. So I try to obviously replicate this because this is what I'm used to work with. So that's why I created these different passworks. And the passwork, let's jump into the TV, for instance, and maybe go to a different frame where we see the TV. We should probably also view from the TV then. Enable TV pass. And now we have the TV here. Yeah, for instance, if you want to subdivide it or whatever, right now I created a collection up here. And a collection is a group of items in it. And right now, whatever is in geo asterisk, I will select. So I select everything in the scene graph, but I'm excluding the TV. So I'm essentially creating an isolate node, an invert. And then I'm just setting, I'm passing the collection in here. Collections always go with a percentage sign. And I'm just going up input, which is going whatever is in this input name. That is what my primitive should be, my collection is. And the collection name is in here $OS, which means it's the operator name. Right now, I'm just setting camera visibility for everything off, which is not a TV set, right? So if I want to do something just on a TV set, I would just do a render geometry here. And this obviously applies to Karma or Arnold. And then let's find the TV. You can obviously select it here. And then you get it selected. I think we need to select the top group. I'm not super sure yet. Unfortunately, we don't have these default Arnold views like you have in Maya where you can specify or visualize the wireframe very quick. But yeah, you can do, I don't know, let's just see if it works. Set create, camera visibility off, so that works on the fly. That's super neat, right? It's working just interactively, which is pretty nice. You don't need to always restart the render. Whatever you want to do, you can. You can obviously, where's the subdivisions up here? Set or create, just do cat Clark. Let's do one iteration. You can now see, because we do have iterations, we actually get some better specular hits, displacement mapping, all fun things you can do here. Let's just rename this to RGS, render geometry settings, and then we just say enable sub-D, that's it. And that's now only for the TV pass. So we are not doing anything in a set or in the other one. Probably a good thing which you want to do, and if you're working in Shotwork, is to whatever is camera visible off, which is everything which is now in this collection, you probably also want to disable the subdivisions, right? It will speed up your render, or it will speed up time to first pixel. And you can do that obviously for all the things. These are just generic render optimizations, which you should be doing. As I said before, if you have any questions, please pop it in the comments below. I know this here, especially this specific setup now, is quite complex. It's not the most easiest thing to grasp. But again, I'm doing this for a long time, and for me, this makes super sense, and it's for me super easy to adopt. But I can totally understand for beginners or people new to Solaris in general, or to like a node system like this, it is very complex. As I said, the scene files are available. You can also reach out to me. You can hop on the Discord, the CG Lounge, which is a Discord server with lots of veterans, industry professionals in there, and everyone's super eager to help out. And obviously I'm there as well. So the final result of this one is obviously the little ponies here. Obviously there goes some comp work. We can quickly go over the Nuke side if you want to see that. As I said, I created these 3 passes. I created an append clip, so they're all in sequence. Did some little color corrections here, some grading on the pony itself. It's all deep. That's why I wanted to show actually like the deep render. Oh, maybe I should show how we actually render everything. Yeah, so the render set is using the render settings final, which is rendering using Sick, which is Arnold's internal render engine for Solaris. And then we've got Husk, which is obviously Houdini's render engine. Right now, as a bug, again, I flagged it already with the developers. I cannot render deep using Sick, weird enough. And I need to render I need to render using Sick because I want to have the automatic per light Aovs. I don't want to create all these different Aovs manually, so I just want to use the underscore asterisk, and that's why I need to use this. So that's a little bit of a conundrum in this specific scene. It might just be fixed when you use it. So everything is deep. I'm deep recoloring everything, and then I'm just piping everything together. So I just want to show how to render deep. Essentially, that's why I did it. Obviously, I would have rendered this together if this would be a production shot, but in this sense, did like that. PG bokeh for the depth of field and the lens distortion. Then we have our exponential glow. We are grading that to make it a little bit more warm, plussing it back over, so we get a little bit nicer, barely visible in this shot. Let's go to maybe the second shot. Then I do have chromatic aberration. You see there's a big glow. Yeah, obviously it's too strong, but yeah, just want to show it. Optical flares to get like a little bit of a bloomy on the edge, like mimicking some film burning. Vignetting, graining, rendering. That's it. Super simple. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this. As again, questions go below, or reach out on the Discord server CG Lounge. The link is also below. And thanks, yeah, for watching.